Welcome to the Whiskey Congress. Honest, open talk dedicated to speaking the truth to those who are open to hearing it. Black, white, right, left. Most importantly, honest, bold, and fueled by good whiskey. In Whiskey Veritas, we are Whiskey Congress. Join the evolution.
Whiskey Congress is back in session. Stephen and I are together in the Cleveland studio after a week off where we were supposed to get together in New Orleans, but my flights got all jacked up and I couldn't go, and I was really upset about it. But you made it, and you probably ate some really good food, and I'm kind of jealous. But
yeah, man. My nephew was down there for the historically black college combine and HBCU All-State Legacy Bowl, which is an all-star game for the HBCU schools. And it's just because those schools don't get the same sort of attention as like your Power 5 or even your non-Power 5, sure, like your MAC and everything else. So, they get a little separate thing just because if they didn't do something like this, then the NFL scouts just wouldn't go, right? Now, what's interesting is that, arguably some of the, not even arguably, some of the greatest players of all time in the NFL have come from HBCU schools, whether it be Jerry Rice, even, Terrell Owens, Walter Payton, and the list goes on. Now, there are people who I'm sure are spouting off names of other players that went to HBCU schools. I'm aware of it, guys. Doug Williams, Doug Williams is there, is a big part of it, got to see him.
Really? That's
yeah,
cool.
I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but I did get to see him. I wasn't going to run across the hotel lobby to yell at him, but saw a lot of big names there. NFL Network does a great job of covering it. They were all over it. My nephew was just blown away. He was texting me, just sending me pictures. Even when I was down there, he got a taste of what the NFL really is, right, and can be, and the level of execution. And coming from an HBCU school, look, the schools are underfunded. They don't have a ton of resources. They try, we've talked about it in the past, but it's just not the same. I mean, comparatively, mind you, they were doing, most of the stuff they were doing was at the Saints facilities, right?
Okay. That had to be awesome.
Which was awesome, right? They're playing, they're practicing in the Superdome. They're using the outdoor outdoor practice field that the Saints use. They're seeing their locker rooms and all that other stuff, so they get that whole experience. But then they were able to go, and then they played at Tulane Stadium, where Tulane plays football, the Green Wave. And even then, he was just like, wow, their locker rooms are so nice, right? So think about it. He's looking at Tulane, right, which Tulane is the powerhouse of not much of anything, right?
They put some players in the NFL.
Listen, but they're not a powerhouse.
Absolutely
that's not.
They saddled us with the bill with JP Losman, so to speak.
Right. So, but he's even looking at that and saying wow, this is really nice compared to what we have, right? So, just everything about the experience was a step up for him, and it was cool to see. It was cool to talk to some of the different teams, on his behalf. It was just a great all around experience. The game was kind of boring. It's an all-star game. They only have a week to do install and prepare.
They probably limit defense.
Yeah, they limit defense. They limit offense. You had to so it wasn't a great game to watch. I'll be honest. But my nephew did everything that he was supposed to do. Measured in at 6'4", and 6'4.5" and 240. Body fat percentage insanely low.
I've seen pictures of your nephew. The kid is fucking jacked.
Yeah, he ran a good 40 time. He wanted to run faster, but he ended up running a 4.8. But that was more his starts were slow, but then he's much faster on the field. It was crazy. On his one-on-ones and watching him against these linebackers, if the quarterbacks could throw, then he was open all day. But that's another conversation. But it was cool. So his next step is a pro day back in Arkansas. He'll have that here in a couple weeks. And then after that is the draft. I don't anticipate that he'll be drafted, but I do anticipate that he would likely be signed as a undrafted free agent. And so then we'll go from there and kind of see where this journey takes him. But it was a lot of fun.
Well, I'm cool. That's cool. I'm glad he had a good experience. I'm glad you had a good experience. I wish I could have experienced it as well.
Yeah, you did miss out on the food, man. I mean,
oh god, I love Cajun
the
food so fucking
etouffee,
much.
the gumbo, the red beans and rice with the andouille sausage.
Jambalaya or just red beans and rice with andouille sausage?
I mean, I literally got all of those. Not
You
to
had
mention,
beignets too, didn't you?
yeah, I went to Cafe Beignet, stood in line and waited and got the beignets with the chocolate syrup and the strawberries. Because like I had all this time to kill on Sunday, so I went in line, right, to wait for the beignet, and I almost got out of line. Like, I'm not waiting in this line, and I'm like, what the fuck else do you have to do? Right? It was like 9 or 10 in the morning, and my flight didn't leave until 7:30 at night. So, or no, it wasn't that early. I think by then, because I'd already gone and got breakfast at Oceana Grill, and had a great breakfast. It was like shrimp and grits and crawfish, and I got a waffle. Ate great. So then I walked over to Cafe Beignet.
Cafe Du Monde, right?
No,
Oh,
Cafe
there's
Beignet.
okay, cool.
No, I know where I was at, sir, who was not there. I got my beignets, which were fantastic, right? And if you don't know what a beignet is, basically like a perfectly square elephant ear, but I don't know how they do it, but they make the inside of these things just like the perfect balance of moisture and yet like consistency. Like everything about it is great with the powdered sugar, and then you have the syrup and strawberries. It's fantastic. And then I found a nice little cigar bar down there that I basically was like my home base. Because it had a full bar with this insane whiskey and rum collection, right? Insane. Like you probably would have died down there. Like just with the whiskey selection that they had. I wasn't overly impressed with the cigar selection, but there is some Louisiana grown tobacco, which actually they had a couple different Louisiana tobacco cigars that were actually really good, which I didn't know what to expect. And I was actually really impressed with what they had down there in that regard. But the lounge itself, oh my God, it was perfect.
Like good smoke eaters and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, well, one, they got the doors and windows open, right?
Oh,
but then they had
points.
great, but they've got or they've got smoke eaters, they've got fans, but there's like a full bar. There's your humidor, and then you walk down. There's like a lounge, TVs. Oh my God, I can't think of his name. Karl Malone had a locker there, which is interesting because his post-career antics are a little problematic.
Well,
but
his pre-career antics are like
everything.
too.
Like he's a problematic person, but he was a good NBA player.
He was a phenomenal NBA player.
But there were a number of people who had like signed lockers there, like names that you would recognize. I can't remember them all. I didn't take any pictures, but and then they had like a really big lounge in the back that was. It looked like something almost very Game of Thrones-esque. That I didn't spend a lot of time back there. I don't know why. It was the perfect sort of setting. I ended up sitting at the bar and talking to people and talking to the bartenders, drinking my soda water and non-alcoholic beer. But it was great. Like, I mean, it just, and then there was a barbecue place right next to it. And they so you could sit there at the bar, smoke whatever, and then you could order food from the barbecue place next door. So the one night, I had already eaten, I was stuffed. Me and Tristan crushed food. And then, but for some reason, at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm hungry. I'm like, is the barbecue place still open? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, yeah, the brisket sandwich sounds good. And they're like, sure. Brought it out. Amazing. So
anyway. Quite like a brisket sandwich at 1 in the morning.
Yeah, perfect. This is perfect food. But I had a decent, it wasn't a long walk, but it was, 10, 15 minute walk back to the hotel. So by the time I got back to the hotel, I walked it off. It was fine.
I did not have quite as much fun as you. I was in a hotel on the outskirts of Baltimore, and I spent plenty of time at the hotel bar listening to white people say stuff that they thought was safe to say in front of white people. There's two bartenders there, and there's a woman who I think is biracial, but she's certainly not white. And then the other bartender is a black guy with really long dreads. And these people were saying shit in front of them that I found very offensive. Just lots of quiet stuff out loud. The woman sitting next to me mentioned she liked Taylor Swift a lot, but I can't stand her politics. I'm like, oh God, I know where this is going. She brought up something of that nature 10 times. And then I'm a huge Ravens fan, but I don't like Lamar Jackson. He makes too much money. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to not go off on this old lady. She leaves, and this douchebag starts carrying the torch of her mentality. And he says, I probably shouldn't say this.
So dumb.
But there's certain positions blacks just shouldn't play, like quarterback. Name a good black quarterback. And I said, well, first of all, I agree. You shouldn't say that. And I was in smug mode, dude. I was not happy with all the things that had gone on.
Yep.
I was boozed up, and I was just teeing off on this cocksucker. And to the point where the bartender was like, you were being very belittling. I'm like, I'm being belittling because the guy's a douchebag. Another guy sits down next to me and is like, yeah, they offer free Bud and Bud Light at happy hour. And he's like, gross. I can't drink Bud. Yeah, exactly. I can't drink Bud Light because of the Dylan Mulvaney thing. And I said, why? And after moments of silence, he goes, I really can't explain why. I said, well, that's very clear. So again, I was in full smug mode. You've seen it. Yeah. It can get pretty brutal. And like I said, the bartender told me I was being belittling, and I'm like, yeah, I guess, but I stand by my statements. But so when he said, name a good black quarterback, the guy next to me goes, Pat Mahomes. Okay, another one. Lamar Jackson. Oh, he's not that good. Dak Prescott. Oh, he's not that good. And he starts. I'm mad at myself for not saying C.J. Stroud just had rookie records. I didn't say that, and
you had C.J. Stroud. You also have Steve McNair,
Russell Wilson,
Warren Moon.
It's an idiotic statement, but this is the shit that
Doug Williams.
You heard in 1980, and people just rolled with it. In 2024, hearing people saying this so comfortably. Granted, these are people my age and older, so they have clearly not progressed.
But there's another interesting dynamic, right? Based off what you said about the bartenders, right? So you've got a black male, and then you've got a possibly biracial woman that's probably black, maybe, I don't know. But then that's the situation that we find ourselves in as black people, right? Like, so people are saying
in
this
the service industry,
right? Especially in the service industry, right? Like, so, I've spent time as a bartender, as a bouncer, whatever. So you're in the situation where people are saying these things or whatever, and then you're put in this position of, all right, I need to stand up for myself here, but this can directly impact my employment, my pay.
Yeah.
So I have to figure out what the balance is, right? Like, someone's blatantly and openly going beyond being disrespectful, right? Like, once you get into these, like, even if you say, oh, well, it's not, like, you know what the intent is, right? Like, we can feel it,
sure,
right? Because the one thing that conservatives have done very well is basically cornered racism into, you got to have a swastika, or you got to be a member of the Ku Klux Klan for it to really be racist, or you have to use the word nigger. If you don't use the word nigger, if it doesn't involve the Klan, if it doesn't involve swastikas, right? It can even involve the Confederate flag. That's not racist. That's just heritage,
right?
Right. But anything, as long as it's not the case, as long as you're not saying, yay for the KKK, as long as you're not calling someone to their face a nigger, right?
Yeah.
And as long as you don't have a swastika, then it's not racist, right? It's just people having a conversation, right? So then what happens is those same people, right, when I call them out, or especially when black people call them out on obvious veiled racism, then they could just say, I don't know what you're talking about. We're just having a conversation,
and
right?
they get so defensive, like,
right?
How dare you?
No, how dare you? I'm not racist.
The worst thing you can do is call me a racist. No, the worst thing you can do is be a racist.
Right, like, I know, they start talking about they know black people, or they start talking about the black people that they like, or what have you, right? And it's always these really weird, obscure references. But, like, that's just such a, it's a fucked up situation, having been in it. Right. Sometimes I act on it. Sometimes I don't. I have to do a cost-benefit analysis. Right. Is it worth my time to say anything? Right. Is it like, and there are times where I've done the cost-benefit analysis, and I've been logical and said it is not worth your time to say anything. And then I do. And then the people get mad. Right. And it's just like, I don't care. Like, you're not going to sit there, because a lot of times it's very intentional. Right, you know how it's intentional? Because people will say it and they'll look at you, right? And then if you don't say anything, right, they'll push it a little further, right? And then the little side smile and the little, kind of comes up like, oh, I could say whatever I want in front of this nigger. I got control of him. He can't do anything to me because he's going to lose his job, and his black ass won't be able to find another job. So I could do whatever I want. But then I say something, And then
you're a Black Panther.
Right. And then all of a sudden it's just like, whoa, what the fuck? And then it's just like, guess what? I don't need this fucking job. I don't care. Right? And me dragging your face across the floor doesn't bother me. Call the police. I may or may not be here by the time they get here, but you'll still be here because you won't be able to leave. Right?
Yeah,
we've
experienced this together in different ways. Right. But we're patrons at a restaurant or bar, and one of the bars that you're a fucking rock star in, I know that people say different shit when you're not there, because sometimes I am.
Yep.
And I've left there. The bartender, the male bartender at the hotel, at one point, it was just he and I at the bar, and I said, "Dude, I'm sorry you have to listen to that shit." And he goes, "Pfft." He goes, so he just blew it off. But yeah, it's exactly what he said. Like, he knows.
And sometimes too, like, and I'll tell you this from my perspective, like, sometimes I know that it's hard for you to rap, but sometimes you, like, the white champion coming up, hey man, I'm sorry you had to hear that. That doesn't make it better. Right? Like,
we talked about this.
Sometimes it's additional salt in the wound. Right? Like, we all know what just happened. It's definitely not my intention. I get it, but at the same time, it's like, look, man, I don't need fucking a white savior. Right? I'm fine. Like, I don't need you to fight for me. Like, what the fuck are you gonna do for me? Really? I mean, like, realistically.
What I do is smugly attack the people at the bar.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, it's just like, look, I'm an aggressive person.
I think that's a fair statement.
Right?
Yes.
Like, so here's the thing. There is no one on this planet that I am going to back down from if it comes to an actual fight, whoever it is. I may get my ass beat, but they're going to know that they fought me. Right? So I shouldn't take that mentality because we live in a civilized society and fighting isn't the way, but that's usually said by people who can't fucking fight. Let's just be honest. Right? Like, people who can't fight, like, literally never ever want to fight, right? Or they always want to fight, but then they don't want to fight, right? Like, they're terrible at it. But the reality is, like, I'm an aggressive person. So the last thing I want, like, hey man, I went out there and I fought for you. Fuck you, don't fight for me. Who the fuck are you? I don't need you to fight for me. You're not doing me anything. You're literally not doing me any favors. And it's also, here's the other thing. It's like that situation, not that big of a deal. Where it's bad though, is when you got some white girl yelling and screaming at police on the street about the police being racist and all that other stuff, and that white girl thinks she's doing something. All you're doing, Kelly or Kim or Kelsey or whatever, all you're doing yelling at those fucking police is putting my life in danger. Every time you yell at them and tell them they're racist when they're literally just standing there, and they're actually not doing something racist or abusive or whatever, is you're eroding, right, a relationship with someone that has nothing to do with you, right? Because at the end of the day, those police probably aren't going to do anything to you in that moment, right? But they're going to be annoyed, and it's going to be in the back of their head. So now, when they deal with me on another day or later that day, right, like, that's that much more negativity that they've got built up that reduces the chance of the police to actually de-escalate a situation if they're dealing with me. And you put my life in danger because you're putting your need to make sure that everyone knows that you're the white ally going out to help the black people, and you put my fucking life in danger over your own, like, narcissism. Right? And that's ultimately what it is. Like, if you want to be an ally, then have my back. You need to get in the back. Right? You don't lead us from the front. That's the fucking problem. So right. Just throwing that out there.
In my defense, I was responding to direct things being said.
Yes, and I'm saying, and this is different. What I'm talking to is different. But that thing that you do can lead to that other thing that could get me killed. Right? And so it's just like, you got to pick and choose your battles. And so banter at the bar is one thing, but don't let it seep out into these bigger real world issues. Like, and you got to, like, and it requires additional thought, right? Which is hard for some people. Like, I'm not attacking you. I'm just saying, like, some people don't play the whole movie out. But just be aware of that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. We've talked about things like that in the past, and the whole, it's one thing to be supportive and empathetic and aware. It's another thing to have to make sure everyone knows it.
Yes.
And that's what, again, I was just being a smug dick, but two people who deserved smug dickness.
Yes. You want some smug dickness in your face? I'm going to smug my dick all over your face.
All right. And so Israeli Defense Force actions continue to do some really horrific shit. And
like, they do this horrific shit, and then they fucking just flat out lie about it. So this week we've got the flour massacre, right? Like, so you've got, Gaza. There's no food, right? Water, utilities, all that stuff. I mean, it's a war zone. People are starving. People are sick. Malnutrition, whatever. Wounded. So, there was, flour was made available. So there's, anyone who could was going on foot to try to get whatever they could in terms of flour, like actual flour to make bread or, to cook food. And the Israeli Defense Forces are saying, oh, yeah, it was a stampede and people got hurt. And it's unfortunate maybe some people died. But there's eyewitnesses on the ground. There's literally overhead video of Israeli tanks literally shooting people, right? And people being shot not only with, tank munitions, but also rifles. And it was the Israeli Defense Force who were the only ones there with guns and tanks. So, and the medical examiners are like, yeah, you guys are saying these people were trampled, but these people have bullet holes in them. They're missing entire limbs. That doesn't happen in a stampede unless there's fucking warthogs involved, right? So what are you talking about? And just once again, they just flat out lie about what they're doing and want to make it seem like, again, like somehow they're the victim here, right? Like, oh, we were doing them a favor, and then they stampeded and made it terrible, and now we're having to answer for their inability to control themselves to get flour so that they can make food so that they can maybe live another week.
And the Biden administration deserves a shit ton of criticism for being the only country voting against a ceasefire. And the rationale for this happened, a week ago. No, it happened again recently. While we were apart, we were the only one to vote against it. And the rationale that was delivered by the Biden administration was, well, we're really close to negotiating release of hostages, and this could damage those negotiations. That's not quite as bad an excuse and lie as, oh, it was a stampede. They just happened to have bullets, but it's as where I stand on Trump. I've defended Biden maybe too much, but I got no defense for this. This was like, we obstructed a ceasefire. There's no way you can convince me that a ceasefire wouldn't benefit the whole situation.
I was done with them in this, with the Biden administration in this, when they voted against the UN's attempt to do this months ago.
Right.
Right.
But didn't we just abstain that time? And this time we actually voted against it. Like, we were the only country stopping it.
No, look. Innocent people. You had thousands of innocent people that were being murdered then. I don't care whether you abstain. I don't care about the semantics. You vote to stop the innocent people from getting killed. That's it.
Okay.
I'm not going to fucking sit here and say, oh, well, they just abstained. No. It's not as bad. It doesn't matter.
That's not the point I was trying to make. My point is, well, I guess I'm saying I guess I am saying not as bad because I'm saying this is worse. This is like
bad.
Yes. Okay.
Same bad.
They didn't, and I think
we're the fucking leader. We're allegedly the leader of the fucking free world.
The UN building is in New York City.
It's in New York City. It's in our city. It's in the big fucking apple. Yeah. You don't abstain. You don't vote against it, right? If you're the leader of the free world, right, where you want people to have freedom, right, where everyone's constantly talking about freedom, then maybe when you see people just getting fucking massacred over a beef that goes back to pre-World War I, and even further than that goes back into the fucking pre-biblical times, then maybe you step in and just say, hey, you need to stop killing each other. But no, we don't have listen, and I'm going to say this outright. If Biden loses his fucking, if he loses this election over this, I have a problem with it. I do not have a problem with it. Trump is of absolute fucking danger to our democracy and our republic. But what Biden is doing I can't fucking stand by this. I can't support this.
And I think...
What the fuck are we supposed to do? I got a complete dipshit, absolute, complete, utter dipshit who is surrounded by dangerous, maniacal fucking villains in Trump. And I got bumbling Biden and his administration, and I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but I know exactly what they're not doing. And what they're not doing is doing anything to stop the innocent murder of those people in fucking Gaza.
I can't argue with that.
So what the fuck are we supposed to do with those being our fucking options?
I mean, I will never vote for Donald Trump, and I will never skip a presidential election. So I don't know. I don't
have the answer. I don't have the answer. I'm just telling you.
My answer is get Biden out of this fucking mix, which I know is not going to happen. I know who I want. I know it's not going to happen. But
you still want what's his name from Maryland?
No, well, he's a Republican. Yeah, I'd love to see Larry Hogan run, but he's...
Who do you want?
John Tester, Montana senator. I think he's electable.
He's not, though.
Well, yeah, we can argue about it, but it's not going to happen.
You know why he's not electable? He's not running, right?
Well, that
you know what I'm saying?
Well, but he started putting the feelers out. I think there's a lot of Democrats they don't want to challenge Biden. They don't want to.
It is fucking March, bro.
I'm aware. But like Gavin Newsom is making himself seen. John Tester is making himself seen. So they won't attack the power base of the Democratic Party, but I think they're hoping Biden gets shown the door, whether it's through his health or through whatever it takes. Unfortunately, Biden's ego is such that he believes he's the only one who can beat Trump, and he's probably the only Democrat who can't. Only legitimate Democrat who can't. I don't think.
I don't know.
I think Biden will lose Michigan because of the Israeli-Gaza conflict. Tough to win if you don't win Michigan, and Michigan has a huge Muslim population who I don't think they're going to vote for Trump, but they're not going to vote for Biden. And how much did Biden win Michigan by? Was it 18,000 votes? Something like that. It was a small number. If the takeaway from all of this is we're fucked. Yeah.
I mean, that is the takeaway.
It is.
That's the absolute takeaway, is that we are fucked. I can't, I don't want another term of Biden. I just don't, I don't want to watch this dude age and die in office. I'm sorry, I just don't. Watching him age the last 3.5 years, whatever, has been brutal. So we're going to do that for another fucking 4 years and have to deal with all this bullshit with him mumbling, bumbling, stumbling his way through all this other shit? Right? I'm done with Hunter. I don't give a fuck about Hunter Biden. I'm tired of that baggage. I'm tired of this situation that we're talking about right now in Gaza. That is the sort of I'm on record of saying I didn't want Biden as Obama's vice president because of this type of shit. This, hey, I can make a deal. Let's go in the back room and shake hands and smoke a cigar. All that bullshit from the 70s and the 80s on how everything's a handshake and a fucking jack-off session. Biden represents all of that. And that was evident back in 2007. Right? And it just and people looked at me like I was fucking crazy. Right? I was like, you don't want this guy as VP, and you for damn sure don't want him as president. Right? And everyone's, he's doing his presidency. They've done so much. Okay, fine. They have done some good things, but fuck you if you mean to tell me that you think he's the only one. Everything that the Biden administration has have accomplished, you mean to tell me he's the only person running in the Democrats who could have figured that shit out? Fuck out of here. Come on.
Yeah, well, I'm with you on that. And I'll tell you who I could vote for that is running. I could vote for Nikki Haley. I'm sure I won't like a lot of her policies, but I think she's sane. I think she actually...
Look, I mean, I think... I don't disagree with you. It's hard because she does have some garbage policies. But I think at the end, what she should do is pull out and run as an independent. Run as an independent. If you run as a Republican, you're gonna lose. You don't have a chance running under the Republican ticket because the Republican ticket is Trump's ticket, right? I don't care what the last sane conservatives have to say, the Republican Party has been lost to Donald Trump. It is MAGA. It is Trumpism. It has evolved into that. Your party no longer exists. People talk about how the Republican Party switched from, the party of Lincoln to the party of Reagan, and they went from, yay, let's free the slaves to, hey, fuck black people. Okay, well, you had that transition that happened in the 50s and the 60s, right? And now it's transitioned into whatever Trumpism, however you want to define it. Yeah. Right? So your conventional old school Republicans, you guys don't have a home anymore. Sorry, you don't. So Nikki Haley has no chance in winning as things are currently set up. So if she steps out, right, even though I have some serious issues with a lot of her policies and some of her waffling, I think that may be the only chance for anything. For anybody, right? Like, because I can't, I don't know if I can actually vote for Biden. I for damn sure can't vote for Trump, but I can't sit out and not vote either way.
Right.
So Nikki Haley, you could, instead of doing this insane thing of continuing to run because she's just, she didn't even win her own state. So at that point, she's not back out, and just step out, run as an independent. And maybe, just maybe, you could fuck shit up enough to where it ends up being you.
I mean, third parties don't have a chance typically.
I'm
not disagreeing.
Typically, but this is such a different landscape.
Typical is an adorable word right now, isn't
right?
it?
I mean, this is such a different landscape, right? I just, if you can just fully separate her, where she can just fully denounce, look, she can get money.
Yeah.
Right? Nikki Haley can get money. Right? And I think she could pull money from both sides, right? People there, because there's enough people that are just that are seeing what's happening with Biden that are like, what the fuck are we doing? On the Democratic side, there are people on the Republican side that are just like, Trump and his people are fucking dangerous. What the fuck do we do?
Sure,
right? And those people have and you could end up seeing the joining of these nefarious forces that the Koch brothers. And I don't know about George Soros or whatever, but you could see those forces coming together to support a person like Nikki Haley. Now, the extremes on either side will hate that. But you got enough people in the middle where you might just be able to pull it off if you time it up right and you get the right money behind it.
And you need to account for the fact that there's the people you hear from the Republican side are Trump loyalists, whatever, cultists, whatever. The people who I've talked to several Republicans who have, and this is man on the street shit, very anecdotal, I get it. But there's plenty of folks I've talked to who are like, my party has left me, I don't know what to do. And a lot of them are saying, I could vote for RFK. So they're kind of saying about RFK Jr. what I'm saying about Nikki Haley, which is not someone whose policies I like, but he's enough of this, and he's not Biden.
I can't deal with his voice. I'm sorry.
It is pretty brutal. It's pretty brutal.
And I know it was an accident or something. He got punched in the throat or streptococcal pneumonia dick in the mouth. I don't care. All I know is that his voice is terrible.
It is.
But and that's a terrible reason to not vote for someone.
It really is.
But I just can't I can't take you seriously.
Thank you for acknowledging.
Right, I own it. I own it. It's super superficial. I mean, it's not much better than me not wanting to watch fucking Joe Biden turn into the Crypt Keeper, but it is what it is. So I don't know. I think the move is to try to get to Nikki Haley and get her to go as an independent. And she's got time, not a ton, but she's got time. And I think she's got some garbage policies as it relates to
reproductive rights.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff. But I mean,
she's going to be 2A friendly,
which obviously that's a win for me.
Right. Well, it's a win, but it's also a win for electability.
Yes.
Everyone talks Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom would play out like Michael Bloomberg.
Yes.
He's going to go to some. Michael Bloomberg, if you remember, went to South Carolina and talked about we need gun control.
I remember clearly because what did I say? I was like, as long as he stays away from the gun issue, he doesn't have to flip. Although I've said it for years, you get the right Democratic candidate, right, to just flip. If you get the DNC to flip on gun control, they would never lose another election. But fine. But Michael Bloomberg, all he had to do was go to Tennessee and not talk about guns. And that motherfucker went there and did a whole campaign that was anti-gun, and he got his dick blown off. And it's like, oh my God.
Well, because, look, we've both experienced it. We've both spent plenty of time on the East Coast.
Because apparently making $63 billion doesn't make you any fucking smarter or savvier.
It does. Well, but they don't relate to anything outside of their fucking bubble. So in their mind, like, oh, everyone thinks like me because I'm in big. Everyone wants to be in Manhattan because I'm in Manhattan. Everyone thinks like me because I'm in Manhattan. Well, dude, they don't.
Right. And
it's not just the rednecks in rural Virginia and rural Georgia. It's people like you and me.
Yeah.
I mean, would I have voted for Michael Bloomberg over Trump? I would have. But at the same time,
dude, I would have if. I wish I could sit down and talk to him, Michael Bloomberg. It's like, bro, all you had to do. Like, if I could have talked to him before, I'm like, look, I get it, right? You're a little confrontational guy and you don't like violence, all that other stuff. I get it. But we got to talk about practicality here, right? Like, I would have taken Michael Bloomberg in a heartbeat. All he had to do was flip his stance on guns, and then
all he had to do was shut the fuck up about it because no one's going to do anything. That's the other thing. The right wing reaction to Obama was the federal imperialists are going to come in and take our guns away, and we can't have that. So we're gonna buy all the ammo off the shelves of Dick's Sporting Goods, and then nothing happens because the Democrats aren't going to do anything. As much as a Bloomberg might want to, he's not going to have support from Democrats in states that aren't New York and California, and maybe not even in those states.
We need to get into, when you're done with this project, we need to get into reloading ammunition, by the way.
Sure. I'm all for it. I've got a workbench in my basement.
I just spend so much money on ammo. It's insane.
Okay, well, I would love to do that. Get a star press. I would even try to automate it, but that would scare me a little bit because it's automated.
We don't need to automate it, right? We just need to,
Star presses are. Well, I actually looked into getting one,
I know,
and it was you couldn't get them.
Right,
but we might on the shelf.
We might be able to now, right?
You know what? I'll start keeping my eyes out for that, and we'll look. We're talking 223 and 9mm. I care more about 9mm than 223, but anyway,
300 blackout, but
okay. Well.
It's different. It's a different round.
Okay, but I'm just saying we're now talking about.
But you're the engineer, and I need you to understand how to make that shit make sense because I don't want my fucking gun to blow up.
Well, the worst thing. All right, we're
okay,
way off.
Anyway,
this is what we talk about at lunch when other people don't have to listen to us being fucking knuckleheads. But yeah, Nikki Haley refuses to drop out.
But I think guess who did drop? Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell.
Sort of.
He just stepped down from his leadership role. On the Republican side, he's still a senator. He's not sure if he's gonna run again. I can't imagine. He literally
looks like. Talk about looking like the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah,
my God,
exactly. And I don't even know what the debate is. Mitch.
If the Crypt Keeper fucked a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, you get Mitch McConnell. I had to get a turtle joke in there. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. He reminds me more of the turtle from the Looney Tunes.
I couldn't come up with a different turtle.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. Anyway, he's attacking his poor old man's looks. But he's stepping away from the leadership role. The question is, so here's the thing. The way it works, though, if he's not going to step down from office during his term, right? He may just not run again because, and even if he did, it doesn't matter because of the way he rigged it in Kentucky. If he did step down, they'd have to replace him with a Republican, right? It's
sure
whatever. So where other states, it's the governor's choice and they can pick whoever they want. They can pick Democrat, Republican, whoever they like. But I would have to hope that he just decides to not run again. And because part of it, yeah, it's politics. I don't like watching these people just literally, it's one thing to see a person go from youthful 20s and 30s, watching an NFL player come in as a rookie and then leave when he's 40. LeBron James, came in the league at 18 and now he's in his, he's in his 40s and he's considered the elder statesman of the league. He's literally, playing against coaches that he played against, right? Like, so head coaches for teams are now, or were guys that he played against who maybe played that maybe younger than him in some of these instances, which is crazy. But it's a whole different thing watching these, watching someone like a Joe Biden who, was in the Senate and in government before I was born, literally, right? And now this guy's been around, and now I'm like, I got to watch this guy age till his death in office.
The difference is LeBron James is in a merit-based job. If he stops scoring points, he's going to get less playing. I mean, and he'll get a break.
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about the specifics of the job. I'm just saying, like, it's one thing, like watching a sports player play for 20 years and seeing him age is one thing, right? And you could say, oh man, it's crazy. Like, I'm aging with this guy. Whole different thing to watch a politician age, them still be in office, right? And then you're sitting there wondering if that guy could possibly die in office due to his age, right? Or her age, right? Dianne Feinstein.
You guys say we saw a perfect example of this.
Right? Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yep. Two people who could not let go.
Right. Mitch McConnell.
And yeah.
Right? We're watching it right now, right?
Joe Biden, Donald
Joe
Trump.
Biden. Byrd.
Robert Byrd.
Robert
West
Byrd.
Virginia, yep.
It's just like, guys, what? Like, there's like, we have to start to think about like some sort of age limit on this shit.
Here's the funny thing: we have an age limit on the lower end,
right?
But we should have one on the upper end, and I don't think it has to be you need to retire at 65. Although I don't think that's crazy, yeah, I mean it's
think about this.
Pure ego. Go ahead.
Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll are younger than Joe Biden and Donald Trump, right? And the NFL has told two of the greatest coaches of all time, yeah, you're too old for this job. So thank you for your service. You can consult. You can do some TV stuff, but you are not going to be in a position of power anymore in this league. Thank you. See you later.
And I was mentioning merit-based. Both of those guys have had recent success. I mean, but like you said, it's like, okay, great. You did some fantastic things for our organization. We appreciate you. We want to send you off on with a positive feeling and a handshake, but you can't do this anymore.
Here's a rocking chair.
Yeah, right. When Kareem retired, they actually gave him a rocking chair. Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah, Kobe got one too.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was a joke. But
yeah, it's probably, but it's always a joke. It's always but so then we've got the governorship of Missouri.
Yeah.
So you brought this to my attention. I don't know much about it, other than is an active member in the Ku Klux Klan.
So this guy.
I don't know what that means even, but
wait, what?
What active member mean? Like, is he putting on the robe and?
So his name is Daryl McClanahan III.
That tracks.
And he says he was only an honorary KKK member, but he is a pro-white man who acknowledges going to a religious Christian identity cross-lighting ceremony.
They call it cross-lighting?
Yeah. Religious Christian identity cross-lighting ceremony.
Okay. Makes it sound so innocent.
Candidate for governor in Missouri was unlikely to win, but the issue is that like the GOP in Missouri is like, oh, we didn't know this, so we're going to try to get him removed from the ballot. But based off their own rules, state rules, whatever, he paid his money. He's already on the ticket. And so it kind of goes to, yeah, you probably should have vetted him before you accepted his money, but you didn't. So now you can't get him off the ticket. And he's not going to step down. So this guy is just going to be able to run. Even though now they say it's unlikely that he will win, which thank God I would hope so. But it doesn't bode well. It's not a good look for the GOP, who will, go out of their way to talk about not being racist, kind of as we talked about earlier with some of the people you were dealing with at your hotel. And they'll sit there and say, oh, we're not racist and Trumpism isn't racism and blah, blah, blah. As long as you think like us, we don't care what race you are. But then, like, you have examples of this where it's just like, are you sure? Because there's this guy, right? And they go, well, he doesn't count. Like, all right, but what about this other guy who's doing the same thing? Well, he doesn't count either. I don't want to sit there and blanket this guy and say he is the representation of the entire GOP and the Republican Party. But he and his ilk and the other buddies that are in the KKK with him in Missouri, whether they're honorary members or not, the people that are having cross-lighting ceremonies, right, out in the fields, they're with you. They're definitely not Democrats, right, in this day and age, right, because they love to talk about how the KKK was started by Democrats. That is true.
Yeah.
But everybody in the KKK right now, none of them are voting for the Ds, right? They're all voting for the Rs, and they all support Donald Trump. So,
yeah. That switch got flipped in the '60s with Lyndon Johnson, and Republicans love to claim they're the party of Lincoln, and okay. In 1860,
I think you got to be careful. I mean, we could really go back and do a deep dive, and I could make an argument that some of the Democratic policies that have come out over the last 50 years have been very detrimental to black people. And so, did they really switch? And is it just a nefarious cover up? That's a little bit too conspiratorial. I think that they just had some policies that missed. They have had some really good policies in support of, kind of closing that gap. But the reality is that we all know that shift in mentality occurred, and then again, you can sit there and talk about whoever started it, but again, you look at who they support. Who do they vote with now? Members of the KKK, anybody wearing a fucking swastika, anybody waving a Confederate flag. None of them are voting for Democrats. They are all voting for you, supporting you and your efforts, and you have a tough time, right, pushing them away, right, and saying, no, we don't support that, until you get called on it openly and publicly.
Okay, and I'll say, at least to me, when they're talking to me, even then, they'll probably puss out when they're talking to you, but I'm a white guy with a shaved head.
Yep.
People look at me and go, oh, he's one of us. And then at the bar, after there's liberal this, liberal that, I looked at one guy and said, I'm a liberal. Mm-hmm. Oh, but you're cool. I'm like, oh, well, thank you. I feel special that you're accepting me. Mm-hmm. And here's something else I do want to say. The one guy in particular, a nice guy. I mean, talking to him, he's talking about his kids, and he's very socially liberal. This guy did not say anything racially inappropriate. He was a former Marine, and everything was rah-rah military, and this one particular guy and I did have several pleasant conversations. It was the crusty old white people at the bar, and I know I'm a crusty old white person, but saying
it's true.
Thanks. Thanks for not sticking up for me. But yeah, whatever. And so it's awkward for me when I'm sitting there and I'm not looking for sympathy or empathy. But it's awkward for me for people to talk to me like we're cool, right? And have to, sometimes I'll just let it slide. If that makes me a pussy, fine. I'm being a pussy. But sometimes I don't let it slide, and then my ability to be a dick comes in very handy. Mm-hmm. All right, man. We should wrap this up fairly soon.
So NFL Combine is going on right now. I think it wraps up today or tomorrow. Biggest thing of note to kind of come out of it is Xavier Worthy out of Texas, 6'1" wide receiver, ran a 4.21.
That is blazing.
My man was on his horse. So he breaks the record that was held previously by John Ross. That's fast.
I thought Deion Sanders ran 4.21 or 4.20.
I think,
but maybe not at the combine.
Deion didn't run it at a combine, and I think that's the issue with it. But either way, it's still
scorching fast.
There's no. I mean, you're right. This guy, he just is. Now it'll be interesting to see, can he use it on the field? Right. John Ross ran that record or ran that speed, but kind of.
Yeah, it was
okay.
A solid player, but didn't.
Right, but he's kind of a very much a
James Jett type.
What was it? Who am I thinking? Or Al Davis kind of guy. Right. Can run super, super duper fast, but can't do a whole lot else. And Tyreek Hill is sort of really the exception, right? So Tyreek Hill ran a 4.23 or something like that, which again is insanely fast, but Tyreek Hill is a very good route runner. Right, and he's very good at catching the football and has a very high football IQ, and that is where that speed is dangerous because there's a guy, the Browns drafted a guy, oh man, I can't even think of the guy's name, but the Browns drafted a guy in the third round a couple years back, And he was another guy who ran like a 4.23, and everyone's like, oh, he's the next Tyreek Hill. Browns fans were like telling me, I'm like, dude can't catch the ball and he can't run a route. And they're like, he's the next Tyreek Hill. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just a hater. You're a Steeler fan. I'm like, okay, well, except he can't catch and he's not good at running routes. And he's a receiver. So I don't,
Right.
And people got really shitty with me. The Browns released him last year. Before camp was even over, they're like, get out. Speed is great, but can you apply it on the field? Now, he was very effective at Texas, so I think he should be pretty good in the league. But it'll just be interesting to see. Can you run an actual route? Can you read a defenses? Can you throttle down, find the open zone, and then can you quickly get the motor running to get the ball, react, and move? Tyreek Hill is very good at that. And I keep using him because, comparable speed. This guy is taller, right? Longer, leaner than a Tyreek Hill. He's 6'1". Tyreek Hill is maybe 5'10". So that's a different body type. And so we'll see what this guy can do.
Well, look at DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf fell into the third round. He didn't run 4.2 something, but I think he was in the 4.3s. Mm-hmm. And he's also 6'3", 240 or 230. Right. And looking back, there's a lot of teams that said, we passed on that guy 3 times.
Yeah,
that's the NFL draft.
Listen, the NFL draft, it's so hard to predict what a guy is going to be. Like right now, talking about all these different quarterbacks and looking at it, if you look at all the quarterbacks taken in taken number 1 or in the top 5 over the last 5 years, except save for a CJ Stroud and a couple other guys, you got a lot of busts, right out there.
Look at the Josh Allen Lamar Jackson draft.
Yeah,
there were 2 quarterbacks taken before Josh Allen, 4 taken before Lamar Jackson.
Was Josh Rosen in that draft?
He was.
Right,
Josh Rosen
played 1 year and has been out of the league for 2 years now.
Baker, you can say what you want about. That was a circumstance.
Baker's about to sign a $100 million contract, so Baker's doing all right.
Sam Darnold is backing up
in San Francisco. Right. So
Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have been by far the best 2 performers out of that draft class.
Right.
And they were the 3rd and 5th quarterbacks drafted. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so
all right. Yeah, so
Combine's going. So it doesn't people put it gets a lot of pub, and the NFL Network does a great job of marketing and everything else. And look, guys can definitely impact their draft position there. I would argue that they probably shouldn't, because the game, it should be based off what you do in games. But look, guys have definitely skyrocketed up the draft boards because of their performances here. And look, I'm talking about my nephew earlier. His performance at the combine portion of this helped him a lot. Steve Weiss from the NFL Network was talking about him. Doug Williams was talking about him. Singled him out multiple times. There was a lot of buzz about him based off of his performance at the combine. And that's why things like this are important, because it shines a spotlight on guys individually, and can open up opportunities and pathways that maybe didn't exist prior to. So
yeah. And sometimes a guy who goes to a smaller school gets a chance to show up and play with or compete with these guys in the combine and gets noticed.
We saw that with the corner back out of Toledo, right? He ran a blazing time. I want to say Quentin Mitchell, I think his name is, but he's a cornerback out of Toledo. Kid can absolutely fly, and he was a demon as a corner. UMass played against him and literally could not complete a pass on his side of the field. So,
old school Buffalo Bill Don Beebe, blazing fast at the combine. I want to say he played at Chardon State. He played some very small school. He would have never gotten noticed, but he goes and competes with these other guys and runs. Mm-hmm. He ran in a 4.28.
Yep, and ends up being a Hall of Fame special teams player.
That's Steve Tasker.
Oh,
Don Beebe was a serviceable receiver. All right, man. Let's wrap this up. Good seeing you. It's been a while. We are at Whiskey Congress on Instagram and Twitter, and we're done.